Thank you. So it's interesting that people often ask me where the music comes from. How did compositions sort of happen? And, for me, it happens in lots of different ways. I mean, sometimes it's about how the keys feel underneath my fingers. Sometimes it's about what I see outside my office window, about nature. Sometimes I'm just contemplating, the origins of the universe, but but I think too much. Or sometimes, like this piece, it comes to me all at once, like I'm hearing it on the radio or something. And how this song revealed itself to me was when my son, right after he was first born, my son Andy, and I was feeling like really overwhelmed by all my new responsibilities and obligations. And so I had taken some time off, went up to the mountains in Colorado where I live. I did get a babysitter first, so he was fine. And I was pretty depressed, but I got up in the mountains and I was sitting in my car and I was just sitting there determined to be depressed. And all of a sudden, this song came into my head. And it's funny because in pretty stark contrast to what I was feeling at the time, this song is pretty upbeat. And I called it The Gift because of the way it came to me, like a gift, just all at once. But, as the years have gone by and my son has become an adult, I realized that this song is about my son Andy. So that's why this piece is really called The Gift. Thank you. Thank you. And so I've got one more piece I'd like to play. This piece is a song about imagination. And again, kind of brings my son Andy into this a little bit. But really, imagination seems like we have such a vivid imagination when we're kids. And it kind of wears off somehow the older we get. I'm not really sure why that is, but we still have that power. We still have that imagination that resides within all of us. And one of the cool things that happened just yesterday, Drew was taking me on a tour of this facility. And it was so cool of her to do that. And we went through the library, and I saw the place where the kids had their little storytelling room and stuff. And then the new area where the storytelling room is now. And how many people have seen that? Has everybody been there? It's just stunning, and there's a lion up in one of the trees, and I thought, I need to Google that. Do lions actually go up in trees? I don't know, but that's part of the imagination, right? And when I was a kid, I had a really vivid imagination. I had imaginary friends. I used to talk to the wind, actually. They used to think I needed to be medicated for that. But truly, a vivid imagination is really good for a musician, because that's, how you can compose songs and be creative. And so this piece that I wrote, it took it a long time to reveal itself to me. Unlike The Gift, this song took like 4 years before I sort of knew the whole thing. And it started when my son was about 4 years old, and he used to sit beside me at the piano and play with very different toys, very disparate kinds of toys. There were like Legos and Lincoln Logs and action figures and stuffed animals. And he would sit, and it seemed to me be creating very impossibly important drama, complete with all the boy noises and everything, right? And he would use like jumping buildings and flying teddy bears and be very energetic about his stories that he would tell to himself. And, after a while, his energy would kind of fade and he would get kind of sleepy. And then he would be fighting that urge to go to sleep and get energetic again. And I think you'll hear some of that in this piece. But eventually, it sort of seemed to me like, as he got more and more sleepy, that it was like a music box that never quite ended on the right note. So I call this piece Make Believe.
I am Kori Carothers. I do live here. I love it here. You will have to pry me out of California. I will never leave. It's so nice to be among my fellow Mission Viejoins. I don't know. I've lived here almost 18 years, 19 years. Our family has grown up here. Our children, we have 4. I have a 19-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And the song that I'm going to play for you is about them, and it's called Time Passages. When I write music, a lot of it has to do with what's going on in my life. And in the last, well, almost my life, I go through things, through cycles. And the last 6 or 7 years have been extremely difficult in that I don't know if you've seen the movie Eat, Pray, and Love or read the book about a woman that was trying to find her way in life, and she kind of lost who she was, her defining persona. And that's kind of what happened with me. With 4 children, I kind of forgot the person that I usually am. And my husband has been such a defining person in this process to help me return to my musical roots. And this particular song talks about this. It's called Talking After the Dishes. And it's has to do with a friend of mine, too, that has helped me see the value of what my life is and what my life can be and what my life can become, even though I'm older now with 4 children. So I love this song because it just expresses the different things that we talked about being mothers, about having our children grow up, our parents, all the things that have happened in our lives that have brought us to this point to make us people that can contribute. And I want to dedicate this to those of you that are here. And I thank you for coming and talking after the dishes. I don't know why, but I always tend to cry with that song, and because there's just so much emotion in it, and there's so much going on. The last piece is a little bit more fun. It's called A Rose's Tale. I wrote it a few years ago when my roses needed to be trimmed back. Now, in California, you don't think you have to trim your roses, but I do. And they were complaining about this. So, A Rose's Tale. Thank you. And now we are going to introduce to you Liz Story. And I'm so excited that she is here with us. Thank you very much.
So I really wanted to become a better sight reader, thinking I could do studio work, blah, blah. Anyway, so the key with, sight reading is that, you start to play and you don't stop. Even if you screw up a note, you keep moving. And I was not good I'm still not good at it. And I mean, I'll stop and go, let me learn this piece first and then I'll sight read it. So one day on the way home from school, I thought, if I got a gig at, like a restaurant or something like that, in the background, nobody really pays attention unless you screw up, Then, anyway, I thought I could learn how to sight read. So I had stopped at all these different restaurants, and most of them wanted me to be able to do requests, which I couldn't do. So I thought, oh, well. It was about 2 months later, this restaurant calls up and says, to come over. And I'm like, oh, my God. And I put all this, I had a stack of music. And I go, okay, I'm going to do this and do this. And when I arrived at the restaurant and walked back, it was actually kind of a narrow, dark, darkly lit. Darkly lit? That's kind of an oxymoron, right? Okay. And I went back, and the piano that they had was an old upright, and the entire front casing of the piano was missing. That's like, here's the key, here's the hammer. There is nowhere to put music, okay? And I started to absolutely freak out, and, really went into a state of panic, and thinking, I can put music on the floor? No, it's too dark. What can I do? And then the manager of the restaurant came up and said, start playing, and I don't want any applause, meaning don't play really loud. I said, I was actually too panic-stricken to say, I can't do this, So basically I sat down and started to pretend to play the piano. And that's where I think my weird phrasing comes from, some people say, Like if you were to pretend you were speaking, I don't know, another language, Japanese, I don't know. Anyway, that's my phrasing, okay? This is really weird. Am I really doing this? It's his fault. I never actually wanted anybody to know this story until one time I did a clinic, and it was for students that were in trouble, and I was, playing this show to raise money for their concert piano, and they asked me to do this, and I thought, okay, yeah, sure. And they were all these teenagers that, were kind of not in school, out of it. And I thought, you know what, I really want them to know how maybe panic can be useful, and I didn't have a clue. Guess what? Hello. Anyway, so now I'm telling the story all the time, because everybody laughed, thought it was so funny. So I knew I liked the sound of an F minor 9 chord, so I played it down here, then I played it in the middle, and then I played it at the top, and about that time it was like, that's the one thing about music, it's in time, so, I have to keep moving. So this piece is called, and this actually got me a record deal, and P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, actually sampled it. Anyway, one of those outrageous things that happened. So panic can be useful. And it's called Bradley's Dream because Bradley was one of the waiters at the restaurant, and that's a whole nother story. We'll leave that. Put that over there. I had this studio space on top of this mountain in northern Arizona. One of the nice things about Arizona is that it's dry enough, especially up there, that you don't have too many insects. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway, I had this space where my piano was, and I didn't really even have too much electricity. I mean, I didn't have a refrigerator. I didn't have any of that, stuff where you don't realize how much there's a sound. And so there was this one day, and I'm working in this. There was this fly that, of course, ended up sounding incredibly loud, flying around, and I'm going, where? I was trying to get the fly, get it out of there. I couldn't get it, and then I just finally decided to go over to the piano and figure out what note it was buzzing at. F. And it's actually amazing what kind of things happen in F. I'm now, actually, that's not quite the same. I'm just suddenly flashing on the fact that I've been taking care of my parents, who are 91 and 90, and they live on this dead-end street, and across the street is this, this rooster showed up, and it just kept going around all the houses, and so right across from my parents is this child care place, and they're the ones that actually ended up giving the rooster a home. They even have chickens now. But they have these kids, and the amazing thing about the rooster is that it'll actually be quiet when the kids are taking a nap. That's kind of cool. Anyway, but I sit out there because my parents' garage, and because of the situation, I have this little keyboard thing that I put out in the garage because he likes to sit outside, and I listen to the rooster. And so I finally decide, what is he, and here it is. I think we both have, humans also have two vocal cords, but they're very resonant. Well, the rooster, I'm going, what? And the thing that's funny, it's the same with trying to figure out a bird. You have to wait till they do it again to check it out, And this rooster was completely annoying at times. It would do it twice and then wouldn't do it for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay. And anyway, I finally realized that it was, the top note was always a, there it is. And when I did that, finally my sister went, oh my God, that's it. So then I can't believe I just went off on that. It has to do with that fly. So I was very thrilled, however, when I realized that the fly was in F, that it was singing in F. And by the way, when I've told this story before, I think it's hilarious that always horn players will always come up to me later and go, I know what you mean. Because, they'll be playing outside. They can take their instrument outside. So what amused me on a very profound level, though, was that I had written a piece called Things with Wings in the key of F. Here it is. I had already done that. Maybe it was a fly. Another hyperdimensional portal. Okay, I'm gonna say something that weird, but um, was I'm a Steinway artist, and when I did a thing for Yamaha disc clavier, which is really not, it's a fiber optic, blah blah blah. I actually got kind of in trouble, so I'm going like this. No, this is being filmed. I'm not playing a Yamaha. Okay, does somebody have any tape? Sorry. Anyway, I'll use that as an excuse for any mistakes I'm making. I'm going to end with a piece that, because of the whole phrasing, timing, everything, there was and the way that I started writing, I actually, at the point at which I thought I would want to write music, I thought if I just knew every scale from every degree of every other scale, I could improvise. It's sort of like, let me have the dictionary, I'll learn every word, then I might be able to speak the language kind of thinking. Obsessive compulsive, what they call it? Yeah, okay. Anyway, but as a result, whatever language I did have and the way that I started writing, it was like about after my fifth CD, I thought I want this other language that all these altered chords and everything. And so I ended up doing a CD of standards. And I thought also that if I was going to have one other instrument too, and that it would be bass. And I ended up hooking up with Joel DeBartolo, the bass player for the Tonight Show band for 17 years, and a pretty incredible bass player. And the first thing I said to him when I met him was, I just want you to know that I don't know what I'm doing. And one of the things was, which is why I didn't want a drummer, is that I don't really play in time. I mean, it might sound like it at times, but I don't really play in time. And I said to him, I don't really play in time, I know that. And he goes, no. And this is probably the hugest gift I've received ever from any musician, especially somebody like that at that level. Said, no, you play in time. You play in your own time, but you play in time. So this is a tune that I wrote and dedicated to Joel. It's called Out of Time. I mean, that title always sounds like I'm out of time. No. Well, I could say I'm out of time, but it's okay. Not in time. And I think we are out of time, right? Almost. Try it. Thank you so much.
I don't have a question. I just want to compliment you three on the emotion that was projected in the songs that you all developed. I really appreciate it.
You are the most inspiring three women that I have had the great honor to hear this evening. I am just really overwhelmed with it, and I know you've had struggles, big struggles, because you're so talented, and the rest of life would have to come down and put burdens on you that made it difficult to get to where you are now. And I just think you've done a magnificent job. Shows me some things I might have been able to do if I'd had the drive that you've had. And I'm just really taken with it. But my question is, have you a special performance that you've given for anyone special, any special place or special person that was a real thrill for you? Other than Mission Viejo, of course.
You took my answer. I have an answer for that.
Go ahead.
You know, it's funny because I was just on a spirituality retreat, a women's spirituality retreat last weekend, and I travel with my keyboard, so I've got like a full size keyboard, electronic keyboard, and I brought it to retreat, which I don't usually do because I want to be focused and paying attention to what's going on, what the facilitator is doing. But I had this keyboard, and they asked me to play like the last night when we broke silence and stuff. And so there I am, no makeup, hair a mess, in slippers and pajamas, and I'm playing for these women, and I'm thinking, wow, that's what it's been, because what I want it to be, what I want the music to be is coming from a vulnerable place, an honest place, and not just like a show. And there I was, and these women love this music, and I was able to do that then, and so that's my most special performance.
I think the most poignant performance I've had was just kind of a few years ago, actually, in Dana Point, where I was involved with it's called Tashida Heaven, and they're not there anymore, but they moved to New York. But the thing is that it was very intimate like this, and it was all voluntary. So I remember playing a song that I hadn't played before, and I hadn't named it either. And I asked afterwards, what would you name this? And I had a place in mind, and I didn't even tell anybody about it, and they said Big Sur. And it's one of my favorite places to be. And it touched me that they could feel what I was projecting in the music, and it made me cry. I'm a big baby. Everything makes me cry. And so that piece was really cool. And the people that excuse me, that showed up it was incredible. It was incredible energy, like I can feel from all of you. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this.
Because of how my musical, performances started, I just didn't want to screw up. I wasn't even thinking about. I have two. One of the things that's very interesting about people, because being on Windham Hill, we would always go out on different shows and go out into the audience, and where the CDs would be sold and signed CDs. So I ended up being able to talk to a lot of people. And one of the things that was always very moving, because when I'm playing, I'm just, I actually sort of think of myself as, I am not the one, this is hard to explain. It's sort of like the music comes through, I need to have the skill to play it. So I have to learn this passage, or in other words, to be able to physically do it, accomplish it. And then when it's being played, because a lot of times it shifts, you play the tune this way this time, this way that time, and depending on the piano too. And but the thing that always used to make me amazed is that even when, let's say, I'm writing a tune and I have this feeling about it, it'll change, and then somebody will come up to me and, oh, that tune really makes me laugh, and I'm going, oh my God, I wrote it in complete grief. Okay, really? And that kind of stuff is pretty amazing. The only thing, when you were talking about performances and stuff, what I started to flash on though was way back. This is sort of off the subject, but it's an extremely funny story. You guys will appreciate this. Have you ever played an Imperial Bosendorfer? Okay. That is, 88 keys. It has another octave almost. Yeah. Okay. Well, this one, I didn't even know about it. And this was the Montreux Jazz Festival, okay? And I did not have a sound check, okay? And it wasn't one of those that it has a cover or reverse, these are black and these are white. No. So I didn't know. And I sat down and started to play. Well, I started playing an octave lower. And then I think there's something wrong with the sound system. And then I'm going, what? I mean, it was like an extreme nightmare until I finally realized, what? Okay. Anyway, that's I don't know. Does that answer your question?